Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Oh, Mail's here.
Your Owl Post for the week is freshly delivered, and I am just one of the hosts here, Matthew Rushing, and with me, as she is every single week, the holly and jolly Andrea Coffman.
Hi!
Hello.
What should I say? Ho, ho, ho!
Merry Christmas! Yes. It's Christmas here at Hogwarts, and the halls have been decorated, the trees have been decorated. It looks beautiful. The snow
Everything has been decorated.
House elves are running around with, knitted hats. Oh, that's just dopey. My bad. But it's great. So, how are you doing?
Good. We are getting all ready for this time of year and doing all of our fun stuff. And we just had our annual gathering with all of our friends where we bring them adult beverages and they bring us toy donations for our local children's hospital. So that's always a lot of fun. So just recovering from that, now trying to get refocused on the rest of all of our holiday duties. So
I hear ya. I'm pretty much done with all of my shopping. And some of it's already been delivered to the right people, so that's very good.
Wow.
I just only have a couple things left, which is excellent. And then I'm just waiting for some things to arrive for my wife. We actually are making a surprise trip to Phoenix to be with my wife's family because of the generosity of some friends of ours helping us get there. So that should be fun. And yeah, so just kind of ready. Honestly, I'm just ready. I only have as with this recording, I have 8 days left of work this year, and I'm ready. I'm like so ready.
Let me do some counting. I think I have a few more, but I'm not too terribly far behind you.
That's a good feeling there.
I have 9.
Nice.
9 work days left.
See? Yeah, you're right there.
So I'm working the Friday that you're not working.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm not. Yeah, so, which I'm really thankful for. That Friday too is the Friday that Star Wars it'll come out that Thursday. So that way I'll be able to go home and decompress after seeing the final Star Wars movie. So anyway,
you can sleep in and not worry about it.
Exactly, and then go see it again. So anyway. That has nothing to do with Owl Post, which we're so excited that you're here. And as you're listening to this right now and in the future, whenever you're listening, happy holidays. We're super excited to have you here. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a star rating and review. Let us know what you think of the show. We love when that happens. We always read out the reviews, too, on the show. So if you're doing that, you're going to hear your name and review read out on the show because we really appreciate you spending your time to do that. You can find us on thenerdparty.com, which is where you can also find all of the shows that we do here. You can send us an email over thenerdparty.com/contact. Just choose Owl Post, and that email comes to Dre and I. You can find us on Twitter @JoyNerdParty, and we're on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdparty. So many places to be able to talk Owl Post with us, Drea. And this chapter is chapter 11 of The Half-Blood Prince, Hermione's Helping Hand. And I love the beginning of this chapter because you know how Ron was all excited about having all this free time? Well, he's got no free time. And I just thought this was just really funny how hard they're all working and how much it's killing them this year.
Well, and I love that we talked last time about having to do non-spoken spells, and this becomes a huge part of what they have to do. And so I like that that's incorporated right away, that they have to, the biggest struggle they're having is not necessarily just the subject matter, but it's doing the subject matter without saying the subject matter out loud. So I do really appreciate that she takes a couple pages to talk a little bit about how difficult things are right now, and kind of tying it back into the fact that, they haven't had time to go talk to Hagrid yet because they're so swamped by everything going on.
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting that, because she mentions here that it's not just that the nonverbal spells are being done in defense against the dark arts, but this is also something that's now being expected in charms and transfiguration as well. And so this is all of their magical education that is going this way, and it's definitely making it difficult for all of the students. And I loved the image that she paints as Harry's thinking in his head about how all these kids are trying so hard and how they all just looked like they've overdosed on poo with their face getting all purple just because they're trying to make this happen and it's just not working really well. So it's just a really funny, for all these 6 years, it's a really, really funny beginning to this chapter as they're all struggling with school getting harder. And, as somebody who works with online students every single day, it's always funny because, they're not necessarily complaining about the fact that it's harder because they all knew it was going to get harder. But yeah, they're at that point where school is tough and they just have to do it now. And it'll be really interesting to see. I think this is I don't know if I've been this excited about thinking about their schooling in all of these books, but I'm actually kind of excited as we read through this book to just see how they progress, because last book I felt like we really got to see them all kind of one up when it came to school, and then they did the defense against the dark arts where they were doing in the DA and they were getting really good at it and everything. So it's I feel like these students can definitely do this stuff. It'll just be interesting to see whether they can pull it off, in a traditional classroom setting, that isn't being run by Harry Potter.
Yeah, but it's not run by quite the same level of support that they had previously. And I do love, too, that they start talking afterwards about the Quidditch tryouts now that, Harry's captain and he has to sort of run them. They're talking about it, and I think my favorite thing is when Hermione kind of starts describing the reasons why everyone signed up for Quidditch tryouts, and all the things that have happened to Harry, basically since the end of the last book. And I love every time she says something, Ron comes in with well, I have too. Well, I'm taller too. And she's clearly just ignoring him. I do love it. She's like, well, Harry, you fought at the ministry. He's like, I did too. I've still got scars from the brains. And she's like, you've grown a foot taller. He's like, I'm taller too. I do just really love that. And she's just totally ignoring it and going on with what she's saying, trying to show the fact that there's all these people who've signed up for Quidditch tryouts because Harry's running them. So I thought that was just such a hilarious part of this chapter.
Yeah, this chapter has a lot of funny in it. And I definitely agree with what you're saying. The part here where Hermione's trying to explain to Harry why everybody is coming to Quidditch practice, and then Ron butting in. And the best part about all this is that I don't even think... Ron doesn't know, I don't think, why he's doing this. He doesn't have any clue. But there's something inside of him that wants Hermione to see him in a different light. And I think it's really
the same
cute.
way that she's describing Harry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny. And I think what's interesting about this chapter is that we get some indications by the end of it. Spoiler alert for the end of this chapter, but that Hermione might kind of be feeling the same way a little bit. So that's really, it's really fun to kind of watch these kids kind of go from being kids to being people that are on the cusp of adulthood, and they're starting to deal with some very different feelings in their life that they honestly can't even describe, and they don't even know why they're acting the way they're acting right now.
Well, Ron's sort of lack of awareness about all of that is just continues on in the chapter too, beyond this sort of interaction with Hermione, because this is kind of the second or third time in the book now this has happened, where Ron is trying to sort of get this attention from Hermione and seem desirable, right? But we also end up, as we're walking out to the Quidditch pitch, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, but that's okay. We get Lavender making eyes at him and gives him a big smile and sort of, flirts a little with him as he walks out. And he just like, the response, how she describes it, is just like he has no idea what's happening. He's just like, she's being weird. I guess I'll smile back. And like, he's clearly not aware of what's happening right here. Because we go take her, and it's a very obvious situation. She's sort of huddled, whispering, panicky with one of the Patel sisters, Pavarti, I believe. And, because we're hearing about the fact that some of the students are starting to leave Hogwarts. And they're talking about the fact that the Patel sisters were almost pulled out. Their parents want to take them out of Hogwarts, but they've managed to avoid that so far. So we go from a very somber conversation to Lavender just totally like flirting it up with Ron, and it's cute, and because he has no idea.
Yeah, no, he doesn't, and it's actually just really funny. I think all of the stuff revolving around Ron trying to navigate teenage land is hysterical. And it's funny, what's interesting is about that is that part right there is preceded with this section where they get their mail, and Hermione is reading the Daily Prophet and talking about the things that they're learning, and that like not a lot has changed too much. There haven't been too many arrests or anything, but they've apparently arrested Stan Shunpike because he was bragging about some Death Eater plot at a bar. And Harry's like, why are they arresting that dude? He doesn't know anything. Anybody who knows him for 5 seconds knows he doesn't know anything. And she says with a frowning face, like they just want to be seen to be doing something. But I love the way that Rowling here kind of, through Hermione, she is picking at governments that look to be active and do the wrong things and like arrest the wrong people just to be seen to be doing something, when that's helpful for no one. Like literally this is helping no one that Stan Shunpike's been arrested. It's not even helping the Ministry, honestly, because again, like Harry said, anybody who knows this guy knows he has nothing to do with Death Eaters. He's just got a big mouth. So it was a really serious part of this chapter, which, like you said, kind of led them into talking about the different students who have either been pulled out of Hogwarts or almost pulled out of Hogwarts just because of the danger that everybody's in.
We talk about the fact that there's kind of no new updates, and for them, updates are like deaths or near deaths, right? Which is telling as the level of news that they're looking to receive, right? And we come to find out that while they don't have any new updates per se, we as readers get a new update that Hannah Abbott's mom, who, if I recall correctly, had been working for the Ministry, was killed, and that she was taken out of class and told, and they haven't seen her since. They just assume that she has gone home. And I love that. I think it's Hermione. I can't recall off the top of my head. I could look it up, but one of them recalls the fact that like Hogwarts is the safest place to be right now. And they start talking about the level of security here, where they've already talked about the level of security in the mail and in bringing things in and out of the school. And then they start talking about the fact that they have a lot of Aurors on hand all the time. We learned early on that Tonks is stationed nearby. And then we also get to the topic of, well, this is where Dumbledore is, so it should be the safest place. And Hermione points out the fact that he hasn't really been around a lot lately. They haven't seen a lot of him. And that, he's been absent from the dinner table as often as Hagrid is. And they'd made a comment about that earlier. So, there's kind of a lot of information given to you in a very short period of time in a very conversational manner. But it is kind of, it's a lighthearted chapter, but really just painting this kind of doom and gloom culture and feeling that's across the board. And I think that really plays into the fact that that's part of why everyone's trying out for Quidditch, right? Everyone's a little bit scared. Everyone's a little bit on edge, clinging to this sort of figure that's seen as, brave and daring and safe, if you will, even though that kind of seems like the opposite, is appealing. So I think it's kind of a combination of things across the board, but it all plays together and it still comes off as a fairly lighthearted chapter. But yeah, we had a lot happen while they had breakfast this morning.
Well, and on top of that, Harry got delivered his brand new copy of his potions book, which I love that instead of giving back the old one with the graffiti in it, as Hermione calls it, he takes the new one, takes the cover off of it and the cover off the old book and swaps them so that he can give back the new book and keep the old one, because of course he likes the old one because of what it's done for him in potions, making him an excellent potion master, and a class that honestly, with that book, he's not having to probably worry about as much the homework. That is definitely one of those funny Harry Potter moments where he just works the system. He uses his magic and it's really funny.
I do find it really interesting here because I want to come back to this sort of idea when we're done with the book and kind of have a big reveal near the end. That's not really a spoiler because I didn't tell you what it was, and it's a book, so there's a big reveal, guys. Big reveal. That I find it really interesting how well Harry is doing in potions with this direction he's getting from the instructions in the book. It almost is like a night and day parallel to the previous instruction he got. It kind of makes you feel like Snape didn't really teach him at all. The fact that he was able to so aptly and quickly pick up on all of this with just instructions in a book, it really shows he can be taught, and he does have this sort of natural inclination. And it kind of makes you angry that Snape didn't basically spent like 5 years not doing anything at all with Harry. And it's kind of along the lines too. Remember, he tried to teach him occlumency and that also didn't work. So I just find it really interesting that, I think it's just really highlighting that learning is less about just the learner, and it's a relationship between the person teaching or the material teaching and the person learning. And I think it's a subtle thing here, but it definitely shows that like those two pieces have to work. You have to work together to really effectively learn. And we've talked about how a lot of her writings are just focused on education and learning and schooling and the systems and how a lot of our institutions fail people. And I think this is just kind of a little bit of a jab at that as well. Like, hey, he can learn from a book. If you give him an opportunity and actually put the effort and try to teach him, he can totally do it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it definitely is an indictment on Snape as a teacher to Harry and the way in which Snape cannot overcome these things as much as Harry can't. And he's supposed to be the adult in all of it, right? And so it really is something that, Snape should be able to teach anybody, but he won't. He honestly just won't really teach Harry. He just won't. So, that's what you get. Yeah.
He doesn't have it in him to be patient enough to do that.
No, not at all. And this is it's a funny section too once we get to the Quidditch tryouts, because Harry is the Quidditch captain now, and so he is responsible for setting up the Gryffindor team. And like we mentioned before, we have a lot of interest, honestly, in Harry Potter, and a lot of people have showed up to this that shouldn't be there at all, like a bunch of first years that are in the first section that Harry realizes can't even hardly fly at all. So he kind of he obviously gets rid of them very quickly. The second group is a group of giggling girls who does nothing but pretty much giggle the whole time. Harry's...
I think my favorite, though, is the next group that don't even belong to Gryffindor.
Yeah. I love... Yeah, because Harry gets so mad. He's like...
He gets so mad.
Can we... If you're not in Gryffindor, can you please, leave? Because you can't be on our team anyway. You're just wasting my time.
And he kicked out all the Hufflepuffs, and then they say something about like a handful of Ravenclaws also leave.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. Again, like you were saying earlier, we really are just seeing how much the celebrity of Harry has hit. But also, she also mentions earlier, like, look, not only that, but everybody knows now you were not lying. So not only is Harry the kind of celebrity, but he's also this person who's faced Voldemort twice in the last 2 years, and everybody now knows it. So, I mean, there is this aura about Harry that everybody kind of wants to be around. And so the biggest part of the tryouts, Ginny gets to join the team. Katie Bell's back on the team. But the biggest part of this, and Harry waits till the end because he's hoping it will help Ron, that more people will be gone, but that's not the case. And so it's him and McLaggen. McLaggen, he misses 1 out of 5, and Ron gets all 5. Although there seems to be a little bit of strangeness with the way that McLaggen missed his 5th one. And Harry's like, it's almost like he was confounded. And as they're walking to Hagrid's house, Hermione completely blushes as Harry says this. So, our first clue that Hermione's helping hand might be a cheating hand. Yeah. Hermione, a little cheater.
The things we do.
Yeah, those boys have had a bad influence on her.
Someone tell first year Hermione that she was going to cheat in Quidditch.
For a boy.
See what she says.
For a boy. Yes.
Let's see what she says.
Yes. And I love the way you put that. I mean, the things that we do for love. And
I love that she justifies it not just as like, oh, I wanted Ron to win. But she's like, you should have heard what he was. It was like a spiteful thing. Like, you should have heard what he was saying about Ron and Ginny. Like, I just wasn't having it. Like, it was definitely a loyalty thing too, right? Like and then she pointed out very aptly, like, hey, hold on, we're not there yet. Sorry. I was jumping ahead. Anyway, I'm going to jump ahead. She basically admits later after they leave Hagrid's house, and we'll come back to Hagrid's, but that she did in fact confund him. And basically said, like, you should have heard what he was saying about Ron and Ginny. And then kind of turned it on him and said, well, I did you a favor because you saw how angry and worked up he got when you told him he wasn't on the team. Like, do you really that's not a good team player. Like, would you really want someone like that on your team? And he's like, well, no, but you still cheated. She's like,
it's great.
Half of one, sixth of another. So
that is my favorite part, though, that, I mean, Hermione being Hermione can rationalize her cheating and make herself feel better about it. But in the end, she cheated.
It's still cheating.
Yeah, and it's really funny. And maybe.
But I like that he's just teasing her about it too. He's not actually upset or anything like that. He's happy with how it went and everything. But like, I love that he knows he can kind of like needle her a little bit with it.
Yep.
And makes her uncomfortable. And I think Harry's kind of starting to see some of what we talked about between Ron and Hermione transpiring as well. He's seeing a little bit of it from the outside and kind of realizing they don't even know what's going on. But yeah, I thought that was really cute.
Yeah, I mean, me too.
But then we did. They were walking to Hagrid's house to see him. And they, say hello to Buckbeak or
Witherwings, yeah.
Witherwings.
Even though they still call him Buckbeak, which I think is funny.
Yeah, I mean, he's Buckbeak for life. Buckbeak for life. But they got a really cold reception from Hagrid.
Talk about being cold as ice. He is.
Now I want to sing it.
Yeah, no, he's very unhappy with them, and they think it's all about, them not being in his class. And it kind of comes off as that at the beginning. And yet, what it really is, it comes down to, is that we find out that Aragog is dying. And, of course, we know from the second book, which is another second book callback, which is that Hagrid has, been friends with Aragog since his time at school. And not only is he dying, but his death right now, his dying is actually causing a change in whether or not he would be able to go to be in the Acromantula colony in the first place, because everything's being agitated and he doesn't think he'll even be able to go back once Aragog dies. So this is, obviously for everybody else, nobody kind of understands what Hagrid is going through, because nobody else would feel this way about a, Acromantula, even though the only person I can think of that would probably would be Newt. But, so I thought that was really interesting. Like, it comes off as that he's just angry about them with class. But what we realize is that it really has nothing to do with that. It's something else much deeper, and it is causing Hagrid a lot of pain. So,
well, it's like a whole bunch of stuff compounded, right? Like, he's upset that they didn't take his class, although he knew it would be hard. He was worried that Professor Grubbly Plank was a better professor than he was. He's losing Aragog, right? He is afraid he's not going to be able to go back. And then there's, he's dealing kind of with all of that on top of all the rest of the stuff going on that everyone else is dealing with in the culture and the climate of where we are and what's happening. And I think, he had spent time in Azkaban in the last book and on the run and things like that. So it's just like, it's a whole culmination, I think, of things that are finally kind of like coming to pass for him, and them not being in his class. Like, it's like when you have a really bad day at work and then you come home and your significant other or your parent or something says something wrong to you, and you like bite their head off. You're like, really, it's not about that. I'm just tired and hangry and had a bad day at work or school or whatever, right? It's the same. Hagrid's he's just being emotional because of all these things on top of it. And I love that when they went to leave. First of all, I love how Harry gets through to him. He slams the door in their face when they first get there, and he's like, hey, I'll blast the door down if you don't let us in. And he calls him Potter and says, like, Potter, why would you ever threaten a teacher? I'm a teacher. He's like, I'm sorry, sir. And he goes, when have you ever called me sir? And Harry's like, when did you ever call me Potter? And he's like, all right, well played. But I like that, they're willing to fight him a little bit. They're willing to, get in the thick of it and kind of be strong with him, and that they spend a lot of time with him. They skip lunch essentially, because between Quidditch and Hagrid's, they don't eat until dinner. And then, as they leave, they convince him that the Grubbly Plank's not a better teacher than he was. And, they start walking back to the castle, and they get stopped when they get in the Great Hall, right before they get to the Great Hall.
Yes, and they get stopped by somebody that, none of them are really excited to be stopped by, which is Slughorn, who is inviting Harry and Hermione to a meeting of the Slug Club, basically. Not Ron.
I really feel like the Slug Club needs its own, like, theme song. Like, I really wanted to have its own theme song.
Welcome to the Slug Club, the Slug Club.
Yeah, exactly. You've got it.
Yeah, anyway.
Got it.
Yeah. So, nailed it. And I love
Slug Club.
I love the way that Ron is kind of now pissy about this whole thing because he's not been invited. And of course, Hermione is like, oh, I don't really want to go this by myself because Harry can't go because he has detention. And Ron's like, well, I'll bet Ginny will be there, so it's not like you'll have to go alone. So he's just really mad about it. And it turns out that Slughorn was not able to get Harry out of detention, and that he will be serving detention tonight with Snape. And that's how the chapter kind of ends ominously, with Harry unfortunately headed to detention with Snape.
Yeah, I do like that. He's like, oh, well, I'll talk to Professor Snape, and we'll see about postponing that, and you can come. And they're all like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Everyone's like, oh, okay, great, thanks. They walk away. They're like,
in
no.
hell for that to happen.
I'm just imagining the Mean Girls clip where she's like, "Oh my God, I love your bracelet." And then she walks away and she goes, "No, that's really ugly." Like, sure, we'd love to come to your party. Yeah, no, that sounds like horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
the
you know,
worst.
I know. And I like that Hermione decides not to go without Harry, as far as we know, at least. And I do love, I gotta appreciate a nice, witty or snippy retort that he gets from Snape about how no matter how many party invitations he's extended, he expects to see him at detention. It's so evil, but at the same time, you just have to love the like level of passive aggressiveness that he comes with. And yeah, that's where the chapter ends. It's with someone delivering the note to Harry. And it basically says, he says there's no don't worry about bringing your gloves. He's like, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much the note is, it'll be a cold day in hell before I let you go to a party instead of coming to detention with me.
It's so bitchy.
It is. It really is. It's just straight up classic Snape. And so that's where we leave the chapter. So we'll have to wait till next week to see where we go next. But, you know, it's kind of fun, this book. I feel like for the first time in a while, we're back to being at a little bit more classic Hogwarts type story, you know, because the last two books have been so different in many ways. But, you know, we're back to Quidditch. We're back to the kids struggling with school. We're back to all of these things. But on top of that, like you mentioned, like, this is a very funny chapter. There's a lot of funniness in it. But there is this dark, foreboding, like, feeling that is all over the place for all of these kids and for the world that they're in. And so, like, I love that she reminds us of that over and over again in the chapter, that even while these funny things are happening, there are horrible, awful things happening outside the school. So, you know, I'm really interested to continue in this book and you know, and just kind of see how she continues to build all of that. It's honestly just been really fun reading this one again. So, Drea, before we do get there, where can everybody find you if they want to catch up with you online?
Sure, you can find me on Instagram at Drea Coffman or on Twitter at PCFChick.
And you can find me all over the place. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Vero under the name MattRushing02. I'm here on the network doing Aggressive Negotiations with John Mills. We talk about Star Wars each and every week. So with all the Star Wars stuff that's happening these days, it's a good place to check out. You can find me on the Track FM network. I do two shows there. One is called The Orb. I do that with Chris Jones. We talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine when we get a chance to record an episode. You can find me doing the 602 Club, which is our general geek show. We're talking about all of the fandoms that we love over there. So not just one, but there's also plenty of Star Wars talk going on over there with everything. And last but not least, you can find me doing Cinema Stories with my good friend Courtney as we talk about films, but through the lens of faith. But thank you so much for checking your Outpost.
Mischief managed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.